Welcome to another episode of Problem Busters with myself, Jonathan, and the Honourable Ollie. How are you?
Good, my friend. And you?
Very well, thank you.
Fall is coming.
Yes,
and the leaves are falling. And seeing as we're speaking to someone across the ocean, interesting fact, fall used to be what Europeans called autumn. And then Europe moved on to calling it autumn. That's a fact. Interesting, right?
Yeah. We need a fact noise. Ding, 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 ding. But we are joined by a wonderful guest who will brighten up our day today. Who do we have, Ollie?
So, Kristi Barker. Kristi is a physiotherapist from Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. Did I get that right?
You sure did. Good job.
Excellent. Who specialises in rehabilitation and injury recovery. Thank you for joining us, Kristi.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And also, well done fitting a honeymoon and a wedding in this climate. I think that's an achievement in organising.
And honestly, it was a shock to us as well after having to postpone it with COVID. So we got really lucky, I felt like.
I think you definitely did.
Yeah.
My partner and I postponed ours and we were like, let's just give it another year. And here we are.
Yeah, I feel you.
So what we normally do is we just start off with a bit about you and a bit about where you're from. And feel free to center the listeners on the map as to where Regina is.
I am from Canada and I'm in Regina, Saskatchewan. So if you look at the map, we're kind of central and west of Canada. And yeah, a little bit about myself. So I've been a physical therapist for about 5 years now. And what got me into physical therapy is A, I'm a klutz, and B, I was really into volleyball when I was younger, and I had some injuries. And even from a very young age, I just kind of knew that this was the direction that I wanted to go. In terms of Reach Rehab, where that all came about is prior to COVID, I went on a trip to Uganda to help distribute wheelchairs. And it was a big aha moment for me when I realized how impactful education could be. So my favorite story and again, aha moment is there was a mother and she brought her 3-year-old son and they were hoping to fit him for a wheelchair. And after assessing him, I realized that he didn't have a disability. He just was very weak because she had been carrying him and never gave him the opportunity to crawl and to develop those muscles against gravity. So after only 20 minutes, 30 minutes of just educating her, we were able to avoid putting him in a wheelchair. And to me, it was just so mind-blowing because had we not just spent that time educating, like someone could have easily put him in a wheelchair and he would have continued to get weaker and need a wheelchair for the rest of his life. And I remember this just really impacting me and trying to figure out, okay, how can I be impactful in this way? How can we use education to help impact at a bigger scale? And then COVID came. And as most of us know, a lot of people are stuck at home, lack of access to healthcare, aka physical therapy. And as you mentioned earlier, was it your cousin that you said is a physical therapist?
That's right, Angela.
Yes. So my family members reached out to me asking for help. I have back pain now. What do I do? And then it dawned on me, I'm going to put this up on Instagram because everyone seems to be needing this. And it took off, ish. And I haven't looked back since. And it's been such an amazing experience. I honestly had no plans to keep doing it, but it's become such a passion and such an amazing way to educate hundreds, thousands of people at once. So that's really what is my motivator, is to give back and to help others. And so that's what Reach Rehab is, or reach.rehab on Instagram.
Awesome.
How it came about.
Thank you. So first of all, for those who don't know, what is Instagram?
So Instagram is a platform, it's social media, And that's where you can connect with like-minded individuals, or you can search up videos that you like. You may have heard of like a more updated version is TikTok, but Instagram is a bit more, I would say, for connecting with a community. That would be the way I describe it.
Yeah,
I've never been asked that question.
Well, we've started to assume that we perhaps are assuming, right, Jonathan?
Yes.
So we try to define things for folks.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
It's awesome. So,
go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that reach.rehab on Instagram is mostly videos of me describing rehab exercises or educating how you can get pain-free or prevent injuries. So maybe that explains it a bit better.
Oh, yeah. Because when we speak about physio, I think it's a phrase thrown around in everyday life. Like you hear just by passing people, oh, I need to go to the physio, or oh, you need to go to a physio, or
I didn't do my exercises.
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you really get down to it, what would you say physiotherapy actually is, and how would you say it helps people?
So I like to describe it in terms of what people already know, and a lot of people kind of know what a massage therapist is and what a chiropractor is. So I would say, if you just in general, chiropractor, if you think of them, our first train of thought is manipulation and cracking and joints. And then on the other hand, on the left side of the scale, we have massage therapy. So we have where they work mostly with muscles. So I class physical therapists as a combination of those two. So we look at the muscles and the joints, how they work together. And I would say we are the doctors of movement. So overall, I would say we ensure that you are moving properly and optimally to get you pain-free and functioning at your best. So I guess another way to look at it is because before, when I applied into physical therapy, my idea of it was just sports. Like I would say most people think it's very sport related, but the amazing thing is there's actually so many different regions of physical therapists. So for example, we can work with babies, making sure that they're growing and developing those muscles. We can work with in the hospital. We can work with people post-heart surgery. We can work with people in a private practice setting, which is what I do. And that's just, let's say someone had a car accident and then they can come see me. Or we could work with athletes on a sports team. So the amazing thing is that there's so many different areas, or the jaw, but that's my goal, is to make sure that we're educating people. Hey, you can get help for that. And I think that that's still a big part of the equation, unfortunately, is we don't know what physical therapists all do.
Yeah. And I think I know the answer to this, but in terms of what drew you, you've kind of talked a bit about your why. But the thing that really gets me excited about physio is that it's an emerging area of science, right?
Yes.
It's not unproven. It's not untested. It's probably becoming very mainstream. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely would agree. There's a lot of therapists that are even involved with their own research. But absolutely, it's very research-based. We go off of multiple studies and like the master's program. So the education that I went through a 4-year undergrad and then a 2-year master's program. So it actually came out to be about 6.5 years. And so in the States, though, it's so here in Canada, it's a master's program, but in the States, it's called a doctorate. So there are doctors of physical therapy. So it is very, very evidence-based.
Wow, and 6.5 years is pretty much a medical degree in some countries, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, it is. My first introduction to sort of physiotherapy is I studied, back in college. I did industrial science. Okay. And part of that module, we used to sit in with a lot of the sports scientists as well. And they were doing a lot of physio stuff and things like that. So it really is quite scientific, which is which, on the surface, a lot of people don't actually see that, but it really is quite technical as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had a pretty bad back. A physio helped me. Yeah, one of my friends, he's a physio, and he just showed me a few things to do. and it just helped with my movement, and I'm a lot more agile now. So I don't go 1 week without stretching or a couple of days without stretching. It's so useful.
That's amazing. Actually,
Yeah.
maybe you guys would like the phrase I was talking about with another physical therapist. He said, now I'm going to botch it, but what I really liked about it is he said, well, if for teeth health, right? So going to the dentist, it's just ingrained in us as a child that we should be brushing our teeth daily. So why hasn't this been ingrained in us that we need to do mobility daily and strengthening daily for our body?
Oh.
You know? Yeah. So that's something that stood with me, that this needs to be something that is ingrained in us at a young age, that we need to be doing that daily so that we can prevent injuries. And like you said, it got your back pain free now.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's also a bit of a movement towards physio, because ultimately we had to get to a stage where we were all taking too many pills, and we realized that it wasn't just the pills that were going to help. And I'm not saying that pills don't have purposes, they definitely do, but they are not the solution in themselves for most people, right? So
absolutely.
Do you get that impression from people that you talk to who might be on pain meds and so forth?
I do get that impression. I think for the majority of people that are on pain medication, they don't want to be on them, or at least by the time I see them, they want to go off of them. And my favorite phrase is that movement is medicine. It's free medicine, right? If it's also a pain reliever and a preventer of this, let's say this injury or pain continuing on, then why wouldn't we look for the long-term result?
Yeah, and that's empowering for people. Do you get that impression from people as well when they come and see you, kind of expecting they're going to have to do this very regularly, and then a bit surprised that they end up with a series of things that they could do themselves to keep themselves healthy?
I see a bit of everything. Honestly, I see some people who think it'll be a quick fix, and I see some people who are committed to months of work. What I have seen more trending lately is that prevention aspect, which I'm really, really excited to see, is people coming in. And I think a lot of people still don't know that is a reason to come into physio. Is you don't need to have an injury to see a physical therapist. You can come and see a physical therapist and make sure that you are moving right, or that you can prevent future injuries. So for example, for those that are working from home, well, we know that you're sitting all day. What can we do and give you daily exercises to prevent you from getting tight hip flexors, and the rest is kind of like that. That's what the trend I've been seeing, and I'm really excited that that's coming out.
Awesome. And I guess that plays into the whole sort of dentist view as well, where you'd go to the dentist regularly, even if just for your regular checkup. So you can go to your physio for your physio checkup. I think that's
absolutely
that's really neat. That's really neat.
Yes.
And so we thought we would focus today on, because there's almost as many topics as there are people, right? But we thought we would focus on something that's been very relevant to all of us during the pandemic, and that is working from home and staying healthy when you're working from home. So maybe if we just dive into that for a moment.
Absolutely.
How have you seen lockdown affect people? What kind of common complaints are you getting from clients as a result of working from home?
Oh, absolutely. An increase in neck pain, shoulder pain, back pain, tennis elbow, golfer's elbow. Yeah, a lot of the kind of hip as well. Yep. Honestly, it's the whole body. It can really impact the whole body, because if we are stuck, it's more the static posture that we're in for prolonged periods. And then that's where we get these the relationship of lengthened versus shortened muscles, and this weakness coming up. But I would say a big majority of that is neck and shoulder and back.
Right. And I've definitely felt that. And I don't know about you, Jonathan.
Yeah, a lot. I think my neck. My neck and funny enough, my ribs actually at some point, it was because I was slouching over, my posture was poor. So, thanks to the wonderful NHS and the lovely people that work in the NHS, the previously, I've seen the change. So as you're saying, like over the years, physio's been more sort of focused on, especially in the sort of medical field as well. Because
Mm-hmm.
previously, I was when I had my lower back pain, I was prescribed like naproxen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I didn't really take it because I heard a few things. So I went to see my friend who's a physio, and he was like, "Oh, okay, do these things," and it helped it. I was like, "Oh, okay." And then this time I went to the same doctor, and I was like, "Oh, I'm getting this," and they're like, "All right, so what do you do?" I was like, "Oh, I work in software in IT. You sit down all day, yeah. How active are you?" Ask me a range of questions, and instead of prescribing me anything, he literally prescribed me with a physio.
Love that.
Yeah,
Love
so
that.
I went to the physio, and the stretches also helped with that. But yeah, the neck pain, the shoulder pain, these are all things, and you get these weird habits where you're lopsided. So if I lean on the desk with my left arm all day, you don't notice you're doing that for months and months and months.
Yes. Yeah. How that
So
can impact you with that prolonged posture.
yeah, so I'm definitely felt some of that during during lockdown.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that the doctor was referring to physio, because I think for the most part that is common, but I still find that I have patients come in on their own, and even like, let's say, post surgery, where it's almost
Mm.
imperative to see a physio, that they weren't referred. But so again, I think that's where I hope the growth of our practice continues, is knowing when to refer and for what.
Oh, so
Sorry, Jonathan.
mm,
That just makes me
mm,
think of one area that you could clear up. What is the difference between physiotherapist and occupational therapist? Because we often
Ah.
talk about OTs in offices, at least in England.
Yes. So occupational therapists are, think of more of your like activities of daily living. So if you have to get in and out of the tub, or if you have to um, use a desk at work every day. So that's something that the occupational therapist can assess and make sure that let's say I had a 75-year-old that couldn't get in and out of the tub, so they would go to their home and they can make sure that they can do that and safely. And then let's say they can fit you for wheelchairs. So it's more, think of like exercises specific to activities of daily living, versus a physical therapist. I guess how I explained it before is more the it's yeah, it's kind of, I guess, like we there is kind of a mesh, because like a physical therapist could also focus in on the activities of daily living. But if that's the OT specialty is to work with someone post stroke and they can't use their hand properly, then we would send them to OT, because they'll have more of those specific exercises for that. Hopefully I kind of ranted there. Hopefully that kind of makes sense though.
It totally does, and we love a rant.
so other than the sort of sedentary lifestyle, in terms of sort of what lockdown has brought upon us, um, are there any other sort of big causes of body discomfort that you see in your patients?
I would say imbalance. Well, imbalances and asymmetries are common, but it's kind of like, it's how we move. Think of how we move, and then so remember how I said with the static posture.
Mm,
So okay, how often we're moving and how we move. So another common thing I see is like someone such as yourself, if you're sitting at a desk all day, but then they want to go and get active. So then they go to the gym and they do a really aggressive workout. So we're going from sitting from all day to an extreme kind of shift, and those muscles are kind of already weak and tight from being in that posture. So I would say kind of our activity levels. So we're trying to push ourselves maybe too hard. Like most common people that I see are, I always say, let's say they're either not doing enough, or they're doing too much.
ah,
So a lot of it can be finding that balance for your body. I guess if that would make sense.
yeah, it does. It
Yeah.
really does. Because you
Yeah.
can't go from, well, really sitting down all day and then for months and then like, you know what, I'm going to hit the gym, put the plates on. let me do some squats. That
Yeah.
doesn't usually end too well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And
So
then
in
some of it could be improper form as well. So let's say someone did want to get active and goes to the gym and then, like you said, puts the plates on, but then they're deadlifting either too heavy or improperly.
mm,
And then that's something we can kind of help guide them through as well.
okay. So
Yeah.
the asymmetry aspect of that, is that sort of if somebody sort of favors a leg or an arm more when they're either walking or doing an exercise or
Yeah, so I would say I want to be careful how I explain this because
mm,
asymmetries are common. And I think a lot of times people get fearful when they see them. So if you're, for example, reaching behind your back, right?
yeah.
So one arm goes further than the other.
Uh,
That's very normal. But when it becomes a problem is when we get pain. I would say it's more so like the repetition. So, for example, if I'm always mousing with my right arm or with my right hand, and then it can lead to pain and things like that, if that makes sense. I would say it's more if it, I wouldn't target it. Like, obviously, if someone came in and wanted to prevent injuries and we saw that asymmetry, we would try to improve it. But if it's not giving them pain, then like it's quite common to have asymmetry. So I don't want, if anyone out there has asymmetries, like don't be fearful of that. It's common. But what we want to make sure of is that you can still move optimally and do that you're not getting pain
Yeah.
because of that. Yeah.
And I had my family have experienced quite a lot of carpal tunnel or RSI or US or fire up the back of your hand when you're using the mouse if you wanted to be practical about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so quite early on I found that, and Jonathan, I'm just going to show my age just for a moment. When I had a summer job and I was counting checks with a calculator to make sure they added up at the end of the day for some accounts people, I found that at the end of the day I was like, ooh, the hand's a bit stiff. Then I went into an
Ah,
office job, started using a mouse, started doing kind of computer graphic design for marketing and that sort of stuff. And I realized I can't keep using this hand. So I switched to my left. And I'm generally left-handed. And that
ah.
worked pretty well until the advent of the touchpad, which is both amazing and destructive. And so I've actually ended up with a Penguin ambidextrous mouse, and
Ah,
I can just switch it from hand to hand, and it kind of looks like a joystick from the 90s, which I
cool.
also kind of like because it makes me feel like a fighter pilot.
I love what you said though about switching, right? So I think that's kind of where we get lost a bit is that, oh, we have to sit exactly like this or we have to do exactly this. But really it's more that prolonged posture. So the fact that you are switching side to side, like that's great. Like that's exactly what we want, is so that you're giving that left arm a break while you're using your right arm and vice versa.
Yeah. Okay. Now that makes sense, right? Because we're overusing ourselves on one side and not balancing it out, right?
Yeah.
Something that I was thinking about in the last couple of days is how much physio parallels yoga to me. Um,
Ah.
and so you take like the press up, and I'm fairly sure that people were doing salute to sun, which involves a kind of a controlled press up 2,000 years ago. And we've isolated that part as good for this particular thing, and we've drawn it out, and now we've backed it up with science. But
Mm.
the thing that I really like about yoga is that you could do one set of movements your entire 90-year-old life and would continually be taking an, advice, instruction, and adjustment. So it's all about how you do it and balancing the yin and the yang, left and right, which
Yes.
which is so similar to what you've been describing, right? An ethos.
Yes. And I think honestly, with whether it's yoga or weightlifting or golf, it's honestly the underlying theme that connects all these therapies. So whether it be occupational, physiotherapy, chiropractor, massage, is movement. I feel like that is the key. Is, like I said, movement is medicine. And the more that, like, again, think of way back when humans were first walking around with the dinosaurs. But we are built to be movers, right? Hunter gatherers. We are not built to, or at least we weren't built to sit all day. And our bodies talk to us, and they let us know, right? If, okay, I've been sitting for 5 hours, this hurts. So I actually look at pain in a good way. I mean, not everyone would agree with me, but as a physio, pain is good because it tells us what our body can and can't handle.
That's a really interesting thought, because then it's a red flashing light, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I loved your comparison to yoga because, I mean, again, it's just we're getting the body moving, and it's funny. I just went to yoga last night, and it's so great, and for your mental health as well, right?
Yeah, and as I started to meet Olympic lifters or people that just lift, one of the things that really grabbed me that I never expected was people talking about how meditative it can be to lift up really heavy pieces of iron and sweat over it. I never expected that, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Does Jonathan do that?
Not often.
Oh! I thought maybe he was referring
No, I
to.
do. Yeah, no, I do lift. I prefer that's my preferred method of exercise is lifting and rowing, and
Oh, excellent.
and a bit of yoga. I used to jog, but I think my joints were saying no.
So
In terms of,
you were listening to your body.
yeah, I was, so yeah, I was it was a bit my knees and my joints was, I was just thinking this is not right, and maybe let me try cycling for a bit. I was like, oh, okay. And then I just got into rowing because I don't know why, it's just really, really good.
And
Mhm.
go ahead. You go. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
We're so close together, but there's still a
Yeah.
slight delay because we're thousands of miles apart.
Exactly. No, I'm currently nursing a shoulder injury from the old lifting, and I'm a victim of not doing things for a while, and then doing a bit of weights. So I'm nursing one of those. So yeah.
That's the tricky part, is finding that balance, right?
Yeah,
But I would
definitely.
say what made me think of this next point of what you were saying is, again, if anyone is like out there listening, and you think about, okay, how do I move the most, or what do I do throughout my day? So, for example, you would say that you are at a desk job, right? And then
Yep.
sometimes you go and you weightlift. So honestly, it's just good to like visualize it this way and think about, okay, so I'm getting the strengthening component, and then what about mobility? But you did mention the yoga, so that's a great way to look at it. Is that, again, that balance, right? So balance between the mobility and the stability. And that's, again, kind of a reason I do end up seeing people, is because, I mean, it's great, they love to move, but again, let's say I do have a marathon runner and they put on miles and miles of running, right? So then we need to work at, okay, now we need to strengthen, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Is it's all about, the bigger picture is the balance between how you move. So again, if we have just someone that's doing CrossFit and just hard strengthening, then they're missing that mobility, right? So, and that's where we can try to prevent injuries, is finding that balance.
And what is CrossFit?
Okay. Yes, this is going to be good. CrossFit is, think of if like weightlifting or powerlifting, and maybe I have to be careful how I explain this, but I tried it a few years ago, and it consists of kind of timed exercises. So you will have to do, let's say, power cleans. So maybe I would do 20 power cleans, and I could time myself. But I kind of think of it as more so of a community. You don't necessarily have to compete, but there are gyms where you can go and you can do your power lifts. You could do your deadlifts. But I would say it's kind of more high intensity based exercise within a community. But I don't know if that's a good explanation.
It's like an excellent summary.
Yeah, because I always see it, because they have games as well, right? So like
Yes.
Olympic games, but they have like CrossFit games. So it's kind of like competitive circuit training when it gets to that level, I think.
Yeah, weighted. Yeah.
Yeah, it's if you do get a chance, actually, on YouTube, if you do watch some of the CrossFit games, it is quite it's intense.
They're amazing athletes,
Yeah,
right?
they are.
And do you know
But
the thing that,
definitely, oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say the thing that grabs me about CrossFit, and it's not for me, right? Like for me, it's yoga, walking, and swimming, but that's okay. For those that love it, it all comes down to the quality of the instructor at that particular gym for each modality, right?
Yes, absolutely. And again, kind of like what physios do, right? Is we want to make sure that you are moving optimally. So that's another thing you could ask your physical therapist is, I'm a CrossFitter. I don't know if my form is good, because it is like there's sometimes a lot of like CrossFit gets some heat for injuries, but I wouldn't say that that's always the case. Like I have a lot of CrossFitters that are moving well and that they build their strength into that tolerance. But I agree with you. I think it's important that if you're new to it, you are either going through it with your physical therapist or the instructor at the gym and making sure your technique is good. But which honestly, your technique, if you want to do well with your times, your technique would have to be good. So you would hope that they would want to implement that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we apply that to my daily sport of being at a desk, what do you think of standing desks?
Ooh, I love this question. So some recent reports came out and it was stated that the sit to stand desks are helpful if you are actually changing those postures every hour. But what I try to recommend is every half an hour even.
Wow.
Pardon?
Wow.
Yeah. So it's the thing is like, well, if you think about it, I could get a sit to stand desk, but if I still just sit here for 5 hours, isn't it doing what I was doing with my prior desk?
Totally
Right?
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes
So
sense.
yeah. So again, it's all about trying to move as frequent as possible. So when people do get access to a sit to stand desk, which I highly recommend, I just recommend they have a little timer, whether that be preset on their phone or preset on their watch, or everyone's got so many ways to do it these days. But I would say 30 minutes, but if that's too distracting, an hour, and then you will receive the benefits of getting a sit to stand desk.
That's awesome. And maybe a little recording of your awesome Canadian accent saying, "Good job." Or do I have an accent? That's the question.
I do. I was thinking of that when we first chatted this morning, and about your accents. That I was jealous because I just love your guys' accents a lot more than mine.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
For 25% of people that listen will think you sound normal and we sound awesome, and 75% will be the other way, according to stats.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, okay. So if you, and I know this is, maybe it's just a case of which one comes to mind first, but for folks that have a sit down desk that use a mouse and work on a computer, if you could have them do one strengthening exercise or be aware of one element, where would you start them if they hadn't come to you with a particular pain?
So just being straightforward, there's never one fix with one exercise, just to clarify that. I might give you two things. So I would say the number one takeaway is honestly just as kind of what I've been reiterating this podcast, is that to just get moving. So if I am sitting and in 30 minutes, then I'll stand. If I don't know if people have these opportunities at home, or if I stand, then go lay down. If you're laying down, do you know what I mean? So I feel like we already hit that one pretty hard, but if I had one advice, that will honestly be the biggest impact on your pain if you work from home, is just doing, which is the hardest thing, right? Is to remind yourself to get up and just change your posture. But a good strengthening one, maybe I'll pair it with a mobility one too, if that's all right. But so let's say you have been sitting, then I'm going to get you up and standing, right? Because like I just said, I want you out of that seated position. So I would get them to go into standing. And one of my favorite ones is just like a good chest opener. So for example, I just like to have people, you don't pull on your head necessarily, but you just kind of gently rest your hands on your head, kind of behind your ears, and then you just slowly fold forward, and you're curling at your neck and then your upper back to your mid back. And then you can add breath work into that as well. So on the exhale, we can open up. We're going to draw a line with our elbows up to the ceiling, and we're going to open up through our chest up towards the ceiling if possible. Again, it's not forceful. It's just getting those joints moving. And then you do that and you repeat 10 to 12 times. So again, I would draw my chin in. I'm doing it right now, so hopefully the volume isn't bad. But you draw your chin in, you let those elbows come in, and you curl at your back again, and then you switch and you open up the chest towards the ceiling. So you can do that in standing. In terms of a strengthening one, I love getting people into 4-point. So for those of you that don't know what 4-point is, it just means when you're on your hands and on your knees. If you can't kneel because of knee pain, then you can always just use the side of a kitchen counter. But because a lot of people that are sitting have neck and shoulder pain, this one is great. I call it like scapular push-up. So for example, if I'm on my hands and on my knees, you want to think about pressing your palms into the floor, meanwhile keeping your elbows straight. And then you try to push your shoulder blades away from the floor, and you can curl through that upper back if you want. And then you're going to sink back down towards the ground. So it's essentially like a straight elbow push up, and you're getting the movement all through your shoulder blades. Hopefully that makes sense. Or push up plus, it's also known as.
It totally makes sense. And I was just smiling because I did the first one and I could feel all the muscles that I used in yoga yesterday. And I thought, this is awesome. And then I remembered another thing that's really awesome about physio is that there's always a discussion about how many times to do it. And that's got to be the key, right? Because otherwise I would do 2 and I would say, Kristi, I'm done, right?
Yes, you are correct. I would say that's the hard thing too about like online is everyone always wants to know. But really, like how many you do and sets and reps and duration, it will highly depend just on each individual's goals. So commonly I'll find that I don't write sets and reps and duration on my post, but people will ask. And then I can give like a general one. But honestly, it really depends what we're trying to do. If we're trying, in terms of what you asked me though, I would say a solid, even starting off at 1 set, but I prefer 2 to 3 sets of 15 repetitions. And about that time, you could sit back down. If you would have done 3 sets of 10 of those push-up plus, and then you go back and forth between that chest opener, that should be about 3 to 5 minutes. And then you could go back and sit down at your desk. And yeah, it's as easy as that.
And my first thought is, that's a lot. And then my second thought is, I'll need to lie down. And my third thought is, maybe I'm not that fit. And maybe this is something I should be doing. And my fourth thought is, but that's kind of the point because it gets me moving for 3 to 5 minutes. And that's exactly what you're saying, right? Mix it up.
But hearing you say that, then you, again, knowing the individual and knowing your goal. So if you're not ready to commit to 3 to 5 minutes, then I would just say, you know what, just get up and you're going to just do 15 repetitions of each one of those and it'll be 1 minute. And it's just about creating those habits, right? Giving you a reason to get up out of your desk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But would I love the 5 minutes? Yes. Would I love an hour? Yes.
Yeah, right. And maybe that's another interesting thing about lockdown is that I was saying to my partner Hannah the other day, I've got to have my walk. Got to have my walk after work. And then I thought I never used to do that before lockdown, right? But now my day is not complete without a walk. And for some people, it's playing tennis. And for Jonathan, it's running a couple of miles every morning, right, buddy?
Wow.
Well, no.
Sorry, under the bus you go.
No, I bought a rowing machine, so I row. At first, I was doing it pretty intense, and then I was watching a podcast, and there was a guy on there, and he was saying about don't always max out this and that, and I think he was a physiotherapist. I hope he is because he works with a lot of athletes. And his philosophy was you don't need to max out every time you do a set. You should only max out if you're looking to sort of get a new benchmark. So if you can do 10 push-ups every day, you're better off doing 10 push-ups every day than maybe maxing out at 20 twice a week or 3 times a week, because at the end of it you've done 70 push-ups, where if you've maxed out 3 times you've only done 60, and that
Yes.
adds up over years. So I was like, oh, that is quite interesting. So
Yes.
now I've lowered the setting on my rowing machine.
Yay,
I've
good job.
lowered the duration as well. So instead of doing, so now I do roughly like maybe 500, half a kilometer I do that in the evening mostly, and in the mornings
Wow.
I tend to stretch and I walk my kids to school. So that's my little exercise.
Wow.
But I try. I'm not gonna uh, lie to our audience and say that I've been consistently doing the 500 meters every day. But I try and do it as much. I think for me, the mobility is what's key. So that exercise
Mm,
you were describing with the sort of the press up thing, that was one of the things the
mm.
physio told me to do to help with my sort of shoulder and pain and stuff
Good.
like that. And it works. It really does work. So
And what does
Absolutely.
a physio do? Because that's something I often wonder, right? You spend all your days helping other people. What do you do for your
oh
mobility,
yes,
Kristi?
yeah.
So if you follow reach.rehab, then you can, I'm just kidding. What do I do? I like to try to break it up. I used to never do morning mobility, but now I wake up and I do, and it's not very long. It's just waking up those muscles. I do about a 5 to 10 minute morning mobility. It's mostly just targeted on what's been more sore. So lately mine has been neck and shoulder with all the sitting, right? So I do a 5 to 10 minute mobility in the morning. And then I do some in between my patients. So let's say I see 3 people in a row. Okay, then I have a 20-minute break. Then I'll be moving for about 5 minutes of that and then charting again. And it's not always like that, but that's on a great day. And then I get home and I would say that we typically go to the gym. So my choice, I kind of mix it up, but as of right now, I'm liking weightlifting. And then in the evenings when I'm watching Netflix, then I add in a longer mobility. So maybe it will be half an hour, and again focusing on the area that's kind of been uh, bothering me. So all in all, I would say I do about like that hour of the strengthening for weightlifting. I do a half hour of mobility. And this isn't every night, but I mean, anytime that I try to fit it in when it's things that I am stagnant. So if I'm stuck in that posture, like why can't I watch my show and make my hips feel great?
How does
And
that actually work? Because I will be sitting on the couch watching Netflix tonight. Netflix, I love you. And, how could I make my hips feel great while I'm doing that?
maybe I ought to make a post on this because
I think
that
you
would be,
should.
yeah, I love that idea. I would say it again starts with developing habits. So I first started doing it when every time, this sounds bad, I'm obviously addicted to Netflix, but every time it would go into the next show. So let's say after 30 minutes, I would get up. That'd be my cue for me to go and do 5 minutes. But now it's become, my hips have felt so good doing that I'm just almost the entire show, I'm doing the hip mobility. So my best recommendation would be to go on my page, reach.rehab on Instagram, and then you can scroll. And most times I have it titled as mobility. So it could be back mobility, it could be hip mobility, it could be toe mobility, really. And you could choose one of those, and then you could do that on the commercial break, or kind of as I mentioned, just like every time the show says next. But in my opinion, I would say it's a great time to do it is during tasks that you're already doing where you're sitting. Like another example would be, let's say if someone has a lot of meetings, like work meetings where they don't have to be on camera. I mean, if they wanted to, they could be on camera, but I don't always recommend that. But so where they're just talking, they could have them on speaker. And then guess what? They could be moving and stretching. And let's say that's an hour meeting, done. Fit into your day.
Yeah, and I have some members on my team, and I won't name names because although they're innovative, they may not like that. So who have Wi-Fi headset, like Bluetooth headset,
Ah,
and that means in exactly that kind of meeting where they're listening rather than delivering, they can stretch. Um,
yes.
that's made a big difference. And I thought, I don't want that Bluetooth in my head, so I'm just going to go with the corded one. And now I've realized that actually I need to be able to move.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really good advice. Can we talk about the Happy Gun massager?
Yes, you can. What would you like to know about it?
Well, I actually have one as well, which was recommended by our osteo, and I absolutely love it. But most people don't know what it is, so I figured that if someone was going to describe it and why they are an interesting idea, it's probably you.
Yes, absolutely. So it's a percussion gun, and a lot of people know the brand Theragun, but the one I have is a Happy Gun. I love that you have the Happy Gun as well. Obviously, like the name itself is cool, but what it does is it adds, think of small impulses and beats to your muscles. So there's different attachments. My favorite one, I don't know about yours, but it's the fork. It's kind of more for like the forearm, the foot, but what it does is it sends the little kind of beats onto those muscles. And what that does is it actually helps to give pain relief, because it essentially is taking our nervous system. So let's say we see a bear, and we call that the fight or flight system. So we're in that scared sympathetic mode. Our nervous system is ramped up, which can happen with pain as well. And just those impulses from the percussion gun can help take us into the rest digest mode of our nervous system. So a lot of times people just think, oh, it's just like massaging the muscles, but there's actually a lot more to it behind it, how it essentially helps relieve your pain through the nervous system.
That's amazing. I have to come clean and say that I only use the soft one.
That's okay.
But you know, I'm gonna branch out, having heard you say that, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. And I wasn't able actually to find the Happy Gun brand, but I've got a similar one that I'll also link
if
to.
you wanted to, I was going to say, too bad you didn't find out through me, because I do have a discount code on my page if people are wanting a discount. So
cool. We'll definitely put that in the notes.
Yeah. Reach Rehab.
Yeah. Perfect.
But I want to just make one clarification in terms of percussion guns, is that that shouldn't be the end-all be-all treatment. The percussion gun is considered a passive based rehab. So for example, you can use it, it will give you pain relief, but it's not going to necessarily change the underlying issue. So let's say you were using it on your forearm because of all the mousing you do. And yes, it makes you feel good and it takes your pain down. But the underlying issue of your forearm is that it's become weak because you overuse it. So if we don't pair strengthening with the use of the percussion gun, the effects will be very short-lived. So I just really want to reiterate the importance of the balance between doing something for your mobility and then also adding that stability component to it as well.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And how did you know I was using it on my arm?
Well, I just, maybe it's bad, but I should have said that I read minds, but that's pushing it. But no, just because you work at a desk. So I kind of, that's where my mind went.
I really like the sheer breadth of things that you can help people with. Does that give you a bit of a buzz? It sounds like it does.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a very nice compliment. But I always have a chat. So my husband is a dentist, and we always have chats like in comparisons of our jobs. And it's what he said, it's so interesting that I have to know, like, basically shoulders up, and he's like, and you know the whole body. So it's just, I'm not saying physio is better than dentistry. I'm just saying it is interesting, kind of all the different areas that we have to understand and be able to help people with.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
I think it might be time for your favorite section, Jonathan. What do you reckon?
Oh, yes. The sharing section. Yes. So this is where we ask you just a few questions to help our audience know a bit more about you.
Sure thing.
So I'm going to fire off a few questions. It's not quick fire, so
rapid fire.
Yeah. So I'm going to kick it off with one of the biggest questions we have is, who do you most look up to in the world?
All right. My sister. My sister and I have always been very close, even though we fought like cats and dogs when we were younger. But I would definitely say that she is someone that I have consistently always looked up to. And she's just one of those people that she just is her true, authentic self. And she is such a hard worker, and she would do anything and give anything to help another person. And I just really respect the life that she lives, and she's passionate about, like, so she's a nurse, and so about giving back in that way. But she has a beautiful family, and honestly, it's just her as a person. She's always been my head cheerleader. She's was always better at me at everything until finally I found something that I was good at in terms of volleyball. And I'll never forget the day she came up to, I'm going to want to tear up here.
Nothing wrong with
said,
that. This is
yeah,
awesome.
Thank you. Oh, and I was shocked because, again, we were always so competitive. And she said, "You're better at me." And she's like, "Good for you." And that's what I want to be for other people, is I want to be their biggest cheerleader. I want to motivate other people to be their best self.
Oh, lovely. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I'm going to cry.
Oh,
Yeah, she's
lovely, lovely.
amazing.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm getting a bit emotional here as well. Cool. Um, um, uh, what book or film has most inspired you recently?
Ooh. I'm terrible at remembering the author's name, but there was one called Self-Observation. And I'm kind of like analytical like that. Maybe I'm a little bit nerdy, but what I really liked about this book, it really forces you to, well, observe your patterns and observe your thoughts. And what I really liked about it is that the more that we can stop just reacting and responding, and the more that we know ourselves and how we react, the better outlook and impact we can have. So, for example, kind of what it talks about in the book is that, let's say our reaction is based off previous experiences. So let's say I ate a certain food and it always made me sick. I don't know. And that's a terrible example, but let's say you run into someone and they always aren't very nice to you. So instead of, our body will automatically go into that, hey, like that reaction and that emotion. But you can observe those patterns, and instead, and you're aware of it, and you can stop yourself from that fear or those immediate responses, and then you wait, and then you can actually give a response not based off of that trigger, and you can just give a good, thoughtful response. So this can be applied to anything in life, whether it be movement. So as a physical therapist, let's say deadlifting used to hurt me. So your reaction would be, you go and you're about to deadlift and you feel it run through your body, you're nervous, you're fearful, and you recognize that, okay, in the past, this hurt me, and you give that awareness to yourself, and then you can remind yourself, okay, no, this is a safe movement, and I can do this. And I don't know, I'm just all about mindset, right? And being able to tackle your fears. So anyway, it's a little bit nerdy book.
You're in a very safe place to be nerdy, right,
Yeah.
Jonathan?
Okay.
Yes.
But I just really believe how mindset really impacts us. It's so heavily related to the physical body.
Yeah, I agree. I think oftentimes you see people that are going through rehab and they sort of completed their course. Like in athletes, that sometimes I guess like boxers, they have to remember that they can still hit as hard as they did previously after breaking a hand, for example. So
Yes.
I think it's really it's really interesting. On to projects and movements. So, what projects or movements have you most excited right now?
So in terms of what I'm planning to do with Reach Rehab?
You can
Anything.
definitely
It could,
choose
yeah,
that.
definitely. Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Yeah. So my goal with Reach Rehab is I am interested in making programs for people to prevent their injuries or to work on a current one. So this is going to be kind of in the making. I don't have one out yet, but I'm definitely committed to, like, the best way that people could get involved is honestly signing up through my link on my main profile on Instagram. And once you get those emails, I can send kind of additional content that's a little bit more in depth than what's on my page. But then I can also ask what people want. My goal is I don't want to just design something that I feel is right. I want to make sure that I'm listening to the followers and listening to what people really need. So the best way to help kind of get those programs going forward is just either contacting me or signing up your email and then giving me that feedback. This is what I need. I need back pain rehab mobility, or I would want this, a reminder on the app or the website or program. So I'm very much in the development stage, but I want to take my time with it because I really want to make sure that it's for the people.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So the best way would just be giving me that input, signing up for that VIP or exclusive email list so that we can get things going. And I've already kind of started, but I can't say an end date to when that will be, unfortunately, yet. But it's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
You guys are like, wonder what program, and I should sign up.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, exactly. I think once once it's all ready, we can have you back on and get into a bit more depth.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, but my ultimate goal is to give back. Honestly, that's what really is my passion and what fulfills me is being able to use my skills as a physical therapist and give back. So, the more that we can help and more we can educate, the better.
Perfect.
And someone doesn't get onto a plane to go and help distribute wheelchairs in Uganda unless they care about people, right? So,
yeah. I hope COVID dies down because I was actually thinking about that the other day, how amazing that would be to go back, or get that company affiliated through Reach Rehab somehow in a give back method. It's kind of just where my thought process has been since starting it, but it takes longer than what I ever imagined. Also having the wedding kind of in the middle of things didn't help, but now I'm full go mode.
That's awesome. So what tech helps you along the way? Like if you could choose one or two things in your technology that you love, what would they be?
Like how for Reach Rehab?
Just in your general life. Yeah. Or it could be in Reach Rehab. It's up to you.
So for example, like certain apps that I use or?
Yeah.
Okay. When I make my videos, I do them using InShot. Honestly, I just use my phone to video them. But InShot has been super useful in terms of like editing, cutting. Another app would be Canva. That's another good one. Honestly, there's so many, but those would probably be some of my primary go-tos. But awesome. People know me for my reels. So if you don't know what a reel is, it's kind of a shorter, quicker video on Instagram that's both can be fun and educational. So I really try to incorporate the fun. I think it's so important that we miss that sometimes is just having fun in our daily tasks. But that's what I would say I use to make my reels.
You definitely get that impression. It looks like you had a lot of fun making them.
I do. You know what? I really like. It's so cool because obviously it's hard with COVID happening, but it really did open me up to pursuing what I'm really passionate about, and it's having fun and connecting with other people and giving back.
Awesome. And I think you've already covered this, but it's worth repeating. What would you like people to take away from this episode and listening to you today?
The biggest takeaway is to move your body and to try to do it as frequently as possible. That's the biggest takeaway. And then also finding that balance. So looking at your life, okay, where am I missing that component? Am I just only strengthening or am I only doing mobility so that you can prevent injuries? And then the best way that you could connect with me is to, follow me on Instagram. It's @reach.rehab. And if you want to sign up for that exclusive members email so that we can figure out exactly what you want, that's my goal is I want to make sure that you stay pain-free and that we can optimize the way that you go about your day-to-day and do the things that you want to do. So that would be my best way that my biggest takeaway from today.
That's awesome. Thank you. Jonathan, do you have anything else?
No, I think that is about it. I want to thank Kristi again for appearing on this episode of Problem Busters. You'd be able to listen to this on all the major streaming platforms, and you can follow us at Problem Busters on, again, all major social media. And I think that's pretty much it, to be fair, Ollie.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for dialing in all the way from Canada, and I hope that you do get some snow for all of us in England that wish we had snow and just get rain.
Absolutely. Well, I will definitely be posting on it when we get some snow, because I'm going to get out and go skiing, hopefully.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much to both of you too. You made this a lot of fun, and I really hope that whoever's listening, that this kind of helped impact you in a positive way, and that it can help guide you to getting pain-free and injury-free.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
And thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll look forward to the next one.
Bye.
Ciao.